You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Welcome to Unbiased Science,
where we bring scientific method to the madness.
We're your hosts, Dr. Jess Steier
and Dr. Sarah Scheinman.
And this week, we are bringing you another news roundup. Now, two things to say about this. Y'all seem to really like the news roundups that we do, which is awesome because we love doing them. And two, there's a lot going on in the health science world right now. So it felt appropriate to do another news roundup. So you know the drill. Sarah and I each pulled 3 articles that stood out to us. I was just telling Sarah that she totally stole one of the articles that I was going to do, and she beat me to the punch. So nope. I snoozed and I lost. Whatever the expression is. So, all right, Sarah, let's jump in. What is your first story?
All right. So my first story is from CNN, and it's entitled Ozempic shown to reduce drinking in first trial in alcohol use disorder. So this article, very broadly speaking, tackles the question of whether the popular weight loss and diabetes drug Ozempic and drugs like it also help people drink less alcohol. So I think first I'm just going to very broadly define what Ozempic is, because I feel like this has been in the news a lot. Many people have probably heard of it, but I just wanted to kind of go into a little bit of the biology of what it is. So drugs like Ozempic mimic the effects of a naturally occurring hormone that is called GLP-1. So every time that you eat, the cells in your small intestine will produce this hormone, will produce GLP-1, which then gets distributed throughout the body, including to the pancreas. And once it's in the pancreas, it stimulates the release of another hormone that's called insulin. And insulin helps to regulate blood sugar levels, which is really important in diseases like diabetes, but also just for all of us, right? Like we really need to be regulating our blood sugar levels. And this drug has also been used for weight loss because the GLP-1 like peptide that's in the drug activates GLP-1 receptors in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which controls hunger and appetite. So when you take drugs like Ozempic, that's why people use it for weight loss, is because it sort of mimics the feeling of being full. So in this study, they are looking at something other than weight loss and diabetes. They are looking at alcohol use disorder and whether this drug could possibly help with something like that. So the research was conducted at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and was published in the journal JAMA Psychiatry, which is a very reputable, good journal. The study was relatively small. It only involved about 48 people. And these people had moderate alcohol use disorder, which means that they struggled to control their drinking despite the negative consequences that they experienced. So over 9 weeks, half of those 48 people, half of that group received the low-dose injections of semaglutide, which is the active ingredient in Ozempic that mimics that GLP-1 molecule. And then the other half received placebos. And what they found was pretty striking, that those that were taking the drug drank about 40% less alcohol compared to those that were on the placebo drug that did not receive the GLP-1 drug. And not only did these people drink less overall, but they also had fewer heavy drinking days and reported reduced cravings for alcohol, which is really, really something when we're talking about alcohol use disorder, because people that struggle with this disease, they experience intense cravings when they are without alcohol for an extended period of time. So interestingly, very importantly, the drug did not change how often people drank. It only reduced the amount that they drank when they did imbibe in alcohol. And the reason why this might be working is that semaglutide, like I said, mimics a hormone called GLP-1, which helps to regulate our appetite for food, but also seems like it might interact with the brain's reward system to reduce our urge to drink, or the urge to drink in people that struggle with addiction.
Sarah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and you may have said this in the very beginning. I'm just so curious. Was there some biological basis for even investigating the potential impact on alcohol use? Because I'm just wondering, like, was this because so many people are now taking these medications? I'm wondering if this sort of emerged as like an incidental finding, that, oh, we were starting to notice this trend in the public, and then we wanted to do a study to really investigate it further. Or was there some reason like, oh, it touches on this neural pathway that
I mean, it's more that, right? So like I mentioned the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain that regulates like our cravings for our drives to do things that keep us alive. So that would be eating. Obviously, alcohol, we don't need it to keep us alive. For people with alcohol use disorder, it's been shown that the reward system of our brain is very highly involved in cravings and pursuit of reward-seeking behavior. So we know that GLP-1 hormone is very important in these types of behaviors. So that drive to do things. So by mimicking the feeling of fullness with people of being satiated, so that the thought was that, okay, maybe this could help reduce cravings in people that sort of have too much of a drive to do something that is potentially maladaptive, like imbibing alcohol and drug use.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Now, just a shameless plug, we actually have recently covered this topic, GLP-1s. I mean, first of all, there's a huge boom. I mean, this is an incredible drug. It's all the rage right now because people are really seeing a dramatic impact on a variety of outcomes, but obesity and overweight being one or two of them.
Diabetes too.
Well, certainly diabetes. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But I think that the reason, and just to be like totally honest, the reason it's getting a lot of attention, I think, is more so for the impact on weight, like just for the general public.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In terms of clinically speaking, I mean, without
absolutely.
question, impact in diabetes. But, just preying on especially the pressure that we all have to be slim and all that good stuff. It just totally, taps into that. But anyway, so there was a Super Bowl ad, and I don't know if you saw it, but it stirred up a ton of
I know which one you're talking about.
Controversy, the hims and hers. Mm-hmm. And so it was all about, it's very dramatic. We wrote a whole Substack article about this. We'll link to it in our show notes, but it's compounded GLP-1. So not FDA approved, and they just paint this unbelievable picture of America as like this, major crisis and very anti-pharma theme in the actual advertisement. Anyway, it stirred up a ton of controversy. We teamed up with Doctors Carl and Spencer Nadolsky. Maybe we can get them on the pod to talk about this.
We definitely should.
They're both physicians who specialize in lipid, obesity medicine, all that stuff. And then we also partnered with a couple of pharmacists, including Dr. Christina Madison, the public health pharmacist. She is incredible. Anyway, sorry, that was a shameless plug, but GLP-1's on the brain and wanted to talk about it.
No, absolutely. I mean, like, that's why I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of like do a brief, like, what even is a GLP-1 agonist? Like, what are we talking about? What is this? Right. And how is it working in terms of weight loss? And like, what is the potential for it to work for a treatment for alcohol use disorders? And there are a couple of pharmaceutical companies that are really starting to explore whether these drugs could be effective.
For sure. All right. Anything else to say, or can I move on to my first article?
No, let's move on. We got a lot to cover.
All right, we do. All right. So let me pull it up. So this article comes from Stat News. The Kansas City tuberculosis outbreak shows the value of U.S. government health funding. So I wrote a little summary here. Let me just walk through it. So a significant tuberculosis outbreak has been occurring in the Kansas City metropolitan area, spanning Kansas and Missouri since January 2024. And we talked about this, right? And it was just so interesting that this actually has been happening since January of last year, but it's really getting picked up by the news right now. And the outbreak has resulted in 67 cases of active TB, which is symptomatic and can spread through the air, and 79 cases of TB infection, asymptomatic and non-infectious, but potentially able to develop into active disease. And unfortunately, 2 deaths have been connected to this outbreak. This is not the largest U.S. outbreak in history. That was originally reported as, this is the largest outbreak ever in the U.S., but it is still one of the more substantial TB outbreaks within a 1-year period in recent decades. Now, the response to the outbreak demonstrates the power of public health infrastructure, and modern tuberculosis treatments. So more than half of the active TB cases have already been cured, with the remaining patients undergoing treatment. And most individuals with TB infection have received preventative treatment to stop the progression to active disease. Local health departments have been really instrumental and amazing. Snaps to our local departments of health. They've been doing a ton of contact tracing and providing free treatment and prevention services. Public health and science for the win. Now, just a couple of other things. So the article really highlights the significant scientific progress in TB treatment over the last couple of decades. So modern interventions have become much more efficient and less burdensome for patients. So, for example, preventive treatment for TB has been reduced from a 9-month daily regimen to a 12-week once weekly treatment called 3HP. Which has also been proven safe for young kids. Now, treatment time for drug-susceptible TB has been shortened from 6 months to 4 months, and drug-resistant TB treatment has been reduced from over 18 months to as little as 6 months in some cases. Little caveat here is that despite these advances, a reminder in some global health context that TB remains the world's deadliest infectious disease, causing approximately 1.25 million deaths annually worldwide. While the U.S. sees fewer than 10,000 cases per year out of more than 10 million global cases, the Kansas City outbreak serves as a reminder of the importance of a robust public health system. Just last thing I'll say, we get a lot of questions about, why doesn't the U.S. routinely use or implement the TB vaccine? So a couple of things just to highlight. So we have a very low TB, contextually a low TB prevalence. So the U.S. has a
relatively speaking.
Relatively low incidence. So widespread vaccination is not necessary. Also, the vaccine, so it's BCG, it's more effective in preventing severe TB, like TB meningitis in children, but it has variable effectiveness against pulmonary TB, which is the most common form in adults. It can also interfere with TB skin testing. It's been shown to cause some false positives in, those PPD tests that we get, which makes it harder to diagnose latent TB infections. And so instead of mass vaccination, the U.S. prioritizes identifying and treating latent TB in high-risk individuals before they develop active disease. Sorry, that was a mouthful.
And I think I was going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head with too, it's what's important to keep in mind is that there are different types of TB. Right. And so it's a little more challenging when we're talking about vaccines. And we did have a guest on recently, Dr. Savoy, who talked about how vaccinations are not it's not like a one size fits all type of thing. It's really like a risk-based assessment is how we determine whether or not individuals should receive a given vaccine or different populations, right?
Exactly. And also, side note, here's more evidence that we don't just push vaccines in all cases, right? In this particular case, it just doesn't seem warranted based on the current, epidemiology of TB in the U.S.
Which is what this article seems to be highlighting, is that it's so important that we have these public health surveillance systems in place so that we can really determine whether or not a vaccine or a given treatment is absolutely necessary for a given population. And if it's not, then we don't recommend it.
Right, exactly. Cost, benefit, and cost effectiveness analysis. All right, Sarah, what's our next article?
Okay, so now we're talking about a different outbreak, not TB, different outbreak, the Texas measles outbreak. So this has risen, the outbreak rises to 48 cases, and it is the state's worst outbreak in nearly 30 years. This particular piece of news was put out by the Associated Press, but various different news articles have been covering this. And so, like what's going on with this, right? So measles cases in West Texas have doubled, with 48 cases confirmed and 13 hospitalizations, mostly among children and teens. Now, this is the worst outbreak Texas has faced since 1996, and the outbreak has spread even to neighboring counties, and even in Lee County, New Mexico, where an unvaccinated teen recently tested positive. So who's affected? Like I mentioned, this is mostly kids and teens, but the majority of cases were pinpointed to a rural, close-knit, under-vaccinated Mennonite community in West Texas. And many families in this particular community choose to homeschool their children, or they send their kids to small private schools, which means that it's very difficult to track vaccination statuses, right? So like with homeschooling and these small private schools as compared to like larger public schools where there are very close records of this are kept. And this is happening. This outbreak we think is probably happening because of the low vaccination rates, because all of the infected individuals were either unvaccinated, confirmed unvaccinated for measles, or they had an unknown vaccination status. Sorry, Jess, what were you going to say?
Oh, I have a lot to say. I'll bite my tongue. Keep going.
Oh, okay. All right. I just a few more things. So the outbreak's epicenter was in Gaines County, Texas, which has the highest vaccine exemption rate in all of Texas, with almost 14%, which is a staggering number. 14% of K through 12th grade students opting out of at least one required vaccine. And that's just Texas policy, right? So this vaccination policy can vary a little bit from state to state. And Texas allows parents to exempt their kids from vaccines for what's called a reason of conscience, including religious beliefs. And the vaccine exemptions in this state have actually tripled in the last decade. So it's in 2014, it was 0.76% was the vaccine exemption rate. And then now as of 2024, 2.3% is the vaccine exemption rates in Texas. So just insane. And another really important thing is that measles is highly, highly contagious. I believe it is the most contagious virus that we know of today. And then it can also survive in the air for up to 2 hours. So if you're unvaccinated, there's actually a 90% chance of contracting the virus if you are exposed to it.
Sarah, I might burst if I don't jump in.
Please do. Go ahead. I just wanted to get the facts set, and then I'll by all means, look, what do you got?
No, I love it. No, I'm so annoying. But this is the article that Sarah stole from me, by the way. This is something that I've been tracking very, very closely. Measles absolutely terrifies me. I am not a person who fearmongers, but Sarah was just alluding to the fact that it's what we call the R0, the basic reproduction number for measles. So a measure of contagiousness, basically, is between 12 to 18 for measles. Just for comparison, I think it's between 1 and 2 for the flu.
Just to clarify, so R0 means so if you have measles, then you are likely to give it to 18 to 19 other people. Is that what that means?
12 to 18, and it's unvaccinated people. Yes, people who are not protected with vaccination. Correct.
Okay, got it. Just wanted to clarify that.
So just a couple of things. Since this article that you pulled was published, the number of confirmed cases actually jumped to 58, and we've now crossed from Texas to New Mexico. And people should know that this is just going to continue to happen based on the sheer contagiousness of measles. A couple of things, and I'll be super brief because I could really talk about this for a while. Another plug for our Substack. We have been writing about measles constantly because Sarah, now, thank goodness you're not on social media because you don't know that people are saying a few very scary things. One, that it's beneficial to get measles.
What?
That measles can actually protect against cancer. People also say, girl, and we did major deep dives with a couple of immunologists, Dr. Liz Marnick and also Dr. Amy Pugh Bernard, who is a new team member for Unbiased Science, who's this badass immunologist, about all the ways that that's incorrect. People talking about how vaccination is not necessary and we should just take, vitamin A is so amazing. And yes, there is some evidence that vitamin A can help once you are already sick with the measles, can protect against some of the more, severe outcomes for about 60% of people. But you're getting measles. The vaccines protect you from getting infected altogether, right? Once you get measles, now you're dealing with the risks. And P.S., measles is not just a rash. Death is not the only thing that we're concerned about. There are lots of negative outcomes that are associated with measles. And unfortunately, a ton of misinformation about the MMR vaccine has led, as you just said, vaccine exemptions, in particular for MMR, are through the roof. You obviously have so many of the unfounded claims that we've debunked a million times about autism and all the other things overwhelming the immune system. These are not things. Your child is exposed to more antigens when they go to a playground than when they get their vaccines. And wait, there was another point I was going to make. Measles. What was I saying? Oh, the measles vaccine is so effective. One dose, I think, is around 93% effective. The second dose is, I believe, 97% effective.
97, yeah.
And just a note for parents who are hearing this and are like, oh my God, I'm terrified. First of all, we don't need to be terrified. There are precautions that you could take, especially if you're in an outbreak area. You certainly don't want to be attending large, crowded events. But also, you can actually get that first dose can be administered as young as 6 months. And then that second dose can also be bumped up. I believe it just has to come 28 days after the first dose. So in particular, if you're in a high risk area where you're seeing cases, that is something that you should absolutely discuss with your pediatrician. And then last thing is, if you're an adult and you're concerned, if you're not sure about vaccine status, some people are getting titers done to check to see, their immunity status. But you can also just safely get another dose of the vaccine if you're not sure. You can skip that titer step and just get a dose. That's my spiel.
Who's saying that measles is beneficial?
A lot of people on social media. I will send you.
No, I'm not on social media, but I obviously I'm involved in our Substack, and I keep up with that. So I got that Substack in my inbox the other day, and I was like, it was like vaccine. It was like measles is definitely not beneficial. I'm like, well, yeah, obviously. What is this? Like, I guess so. Apparently, people are saying that it is. Like,
I know. Sometimes it's like, how are we even writing about these things? And some people will be like, this is so absurd. Why are you even talking about this? Because unfortunately, a lot of people do believe this. A lot of people are exposed to this information. I think we forget, like, as much as I personally fight so hard against echo chambers, try as we might, we are still in a bit of a bubble, and we tend to be exposed to people who are more science-minded, right? But there are entire communities that we're not exposed to who are fed this misinformation.
Yeah, that is important to keep in mind, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, especially when we do what we do, it's like it's really important to know that. Well, I mean, like, I'm a scientist. Like, I work at a university. Yep. Everyone I interact with is also a scientist for the most part in my professional life. And it's really easy to lose track of kind of what's happening in the larger picture. So,
for sure.
Good reminder.
All right. This next story is actually super brief. It's a little bit of good news. And for me, it was like a little bit of levity to bring into this episode.
Oh, that's so important. I feel like these news episodes are so doom and gloom. Like, I love that you added this one in, Jess.
Like, especially because I've been joking. It's like, all right, next thing is going to be, we're going to see locusts flying around, because it feels like so much doom and gloom, right? But here's some good
plagues.
Right?
10 plagues.
So here's some good news from AP News. Why Asteroid 2024 YRW is unlikely to hit Earth in 2032 and how scientists keep track. So super briefly, and I'm going to mispronounce a bunch of things here. Maybe I could even skim through some of these details, but I don't know if you read the news, but there are some super scary headlines like, oh, there's an asteroid headed toward Earth. It was giving Armageddon. It was like, all right.
On top of everything else, we have to worry about asteroids hitting Earth.
Exactly. So scientists are tracking a newly discovered asteroid designated as 2024 YRW, which was first spotted by telescopes in Chile in December. Current calculations indicate a 2% chance of Earth impact in 2032, though these odds are expected to fluctuate as more data is collected. The James Webb Space Telescope will conduct observations in March of 2025 to better understand the asteroid's characteristics before it temporarily moves out of view until 2028. How big is this thing? So it's estimated to be between 130 to 300 feet or 40 to 90 meters in diameter, though precise measurements, again, are expected from the Webb telescope observations. And the potential impact scenarios vary significantly based on the asteroid's actual size. So, of course, if it's on the smaller end, effects would be more localized. However, if it's larger, the consequences would be more severe. All right. I mean, there's some cool context about asteroids in general in the article. So they're remnants from the solar system's formation 4.6 billion years ago. Millions of these space rocks orbit in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, though some can be pushed into different orbits throughout the solar system. Now, just last thing I'll say is that scientists emphasize there is no immediate cause for concern. Let me just see here. NASA has experience with asteroid defense, having successfully demonstrated the ability to alter an asteroid's orbit in 2022 with their DART mission, which deliberately impacted an asteroid as a planetary defense test. All right. There you go.
Oh, I love space so much. I'm such a sci-fi fan. Like this really the planetary defense.
You love this.
Like
you're living for this.
I do. I know. Like if I had not been if I had not been a neurobiologist, I definitely would have been an astrophysicist, and I would have wanted to be an astronaut.
That is actually really cool. I've always been obsessed with space, but also terrified of it. My backup was I was obsessed with archaeology. Just total.
I love it.
Okay, wait, hang on. What is that show? There's a show with, is it Space Force with Steve Carell? I feel like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Here we are. You call up Steve Carell. I'm dying over this story.
I feel like you just described the plot of a lot of my favorite sci-fi movies and TV shows too. I just
your eyes, you're glowing like anything sci-fi. You are
I'm like
beaming over this asteroid news.
I know, you guys, I love space so much.
All right, what is this, your last article that you're getting into here?
This is my last article.
All right,
and I'm sorry, now we're going back to doom and gloom, but you know, it's this one's not about an outbreak, at least, though. So hey.
Okay.
So this is from CNN News, entitled "Marijuana Ads Are Enticing Kids to Try Weed, Study Says." So this article delves into a growing concern, which is how a legal loophole is exposing kids to marijuana ads on social media. Basically, here's the deal. The federal law says that you cannot advertise for marijuana on TV, the radio, or across state lines because marijuana is not legal in every single state. But social media, that's fair game. And cannabis companies are using platforms like Instagram and TikTok to post their own content, and kids are easily bypassing age restrictions on these websites. So they're seeing these ads, they're liking them, they're sharing them with their friends, and then experts say that this kind of exposure makes especially teenagers more likely to want to try marijuana. And right now, there's no one really watching out how all of this is happening. And it's basically the Wild West online. There's just no real regulations and no rules that are stopping these ads from pretty much spreading like wildfire across these social media platforms. And this is a really big concern because cannabis use amongst teenagers is actually on the rise, with over 7% of 8th graders, 16% of 10th graders, and nearly 26% of 12th graders said that they've used marijuana in the past year.
Wow, that's a lot higher than I thought.
It is a lot higher, and I was just trying to think like how it is that this is so much higher, and I gotta think it's just the legality of it. Like it's very, very easy to access this stuff now, kind of even more than it was when like I was a kid. And this is a big problem because while cannabis use in adulthood, it seems to be relatively innocuous in terms of the longer term effects on the brain, although we are lacking certain longitudinal studies. In children and in teens whose frontal cortices are still developing, we do know that regular marijuana use can actually mess with memory and cognition and even brain development. Especially if they are heavy users, then these sorts of effects can last into adulthood, and they might not even reverse. So basically, these cannabis companies are sort of what's happening is they're borrowing from the alcohol and tobacco advertising playbooks, and that's how they're sort of hooking young people. So tricks from the alcohol and tobacco industries that they've been using for decades, such as like bright colors, fun flavors, and like ads that feature young and trendy, what are called bud tenders, which is sort of a play on bartenders. So bud tenders, which are just these young faces that make marijuana feel approachable and cool, that work at legally at cannabis dispensaries. And then, of course, there are edibles, which look almost exactly like regular snacks and candies, and they come in like gummies, and they mimic popular candy brands like Gushers, and even like chips and cookies and stuff like junk food that is very dangerous, like especially for young kids. So in terms of the legality, and how this is sort of being cracked down upon. In California, which is the biggest legal weed market, only 10 out of 539 local areas have actually placed any real restrictions on cannabis advertising. And certain communities have like raised taxes on marijuana to help to fund prevention programs in youth. But a lot of experts say that this is a small step in the right direction, but it really is kind of not enough.
Do you remember those ads, Your Brain on Drugs, where they would like crack an egg into a pan? Yeah, yep. Very, very accurate. But anyway, wait, can I just tell, there's a 2-second, maybe 2-minute, what do you call it? Story from my past that I think is just kind of funny. I want to share. So just really quickly, this was over a decade ago at this point, but I remember I saw this advertisement for an e-cigarette conference at Duke University. I was like, oh my God, I want to go to this thing. I bought my, ticket. I registered for the conference. I fly to North Carolina only to find out this was not a like science e-cigarette. This was a tobacco industry e-cigarette event.
Oh my God.
It was not a Duke University. It was somehow like, I don't even know. I don't even know how they were saying Duke. It was not associated with the actual Duke University. Talk about misrepresentation. But so I'm there and here I am. At the time I was a doctoral student in tobacco policy researching, tobacco warning labels. But my point in bringing this up is that
you were like undercover.
I was in the corner. You don't even know, dying. I was like, are they going to find me out? But anyway, I say this because it was unbelievable how they tap into marketing. And I remember this was again over a decade ago, but they do take advantage of those loopholes and the fact that the regulation has not caught up to the marketing. So it sounds like that's exactly what's going on here.
That's exactly what's happening with cannabis right now. Oh, and it's very hard to regulate something like that. Because it's easy to, outlaw something like television commercials. Right. But what percentage of young people are actually exposed to television commercials these days? Like, who watches cable anymore?
Nope.
I mean, everyone's spending all their time online, scrolling, and then it's a very easy way to just pop something in there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. On TikTok, they call it gardening, because I guess you don't want to have it flagged as, illicit drug use or anything, and have the video flagged and taken down.
Right.
So there are all these videos about gardening, and that's the code word. And that certainly has gone viral.
Oh.
I know. I'm so hip. I'm so with the time, Sarah.
See, this is how you do clue me into much of what's going on. I mean, my friend Kate just recently referred to me as chronically offline.
Yeah. Yeah. You are so lucky. I'm so jealous. All right. Can I round us out with another? Maybe it's an optimistic story. I'm not sure. Or did you have anything else to say? Can I move on?
No. Yeah. Let's move on.
All right. Lastly, this article is titled U.S. gives conditional nod to Zoetis's bird flu vaccine for poultry. We get tons of questions. Is there a vaccine for H5N1? Yes. H5N1 vaccines have been previously licensed. Millions are in the national stockpile. Although at this point, public health has basically decided it's not, we don't need to have any mass vaccination. But this actually is talking about a vaccine intended for use in poultry. So let me summarize the article. So the development of bird flu vaccines has taken on increased urgency as the virus continues to spread. The current outbreak has resulted in nearly 70 human infections in the U.S. since April, with 1 death reported. Recent cases include new infections in Nevada, Ohio, and Wyoming, with most cases occurring among farm workers exposed to infected poultry or cows. So in response to this growing concern, the USDA has granted conditional approval to Zoetis for a bird flu vaccine intended for use in poultry. This type of conditional license is specifically issued for emergency situations and limited time periods. It's based on safety data and reasonable expectations of efficacy. Now, the approval comes at a very critical time. We saw all these significant losses in poultry flocks with more than 18 million and 23 million birds affected in those months, respectively. In December 2024 and January 2025. That was hella confusing. Apologies. So the USDA is working to rebuild its stockpile of bird flu vaccines for poultry that match current virus strains circulating in commercial flocks and wild birds. Previous vaccine stockpiles were developed after major outbreaks in 2014 and 2015, though they were never deployed. These earlier vaccines were developed by various entities, including Merck, Seva, and U.S. government researchers. On the human health front, Moderna is developing a bird flu vaccines for humans. It has received approximately $766 million in U.S. government funding for its development. The company reports progress with its experimental shot. This is currently designated as mRNA 1018 and is preparing to advance to late-stage trials based on preliminary data from earlier studies. The CDC maintains that the risk to the general public from bird flu remains low. The development of these vaccines represents a step in emergency preparedness for both animal and human health protection.
Basically, we're on it.
We're on it. Public health is on the case. All right. We're on the case. Yes. And so looking into vaccines for humans as well as for poultry.
I think this is also brings up an interesting point. It's that what's very important to understand for people that are very anti-vaccine is that vaccines are not just for humans.
Right.
Right. Like our pets, our beloved pets get vaccines, and vaccines are given to animals all the time. And it's just there are a lot of different ways that vaccines really benefit society and that we want them in our lives.
Absolutely. Obviously, I endorse that message. Side note, there is a lot of anti-vax sentiment now bleeding into animal vaccines, pet vaccines. And I know it. I am on that. When my, dogs and cats, I have it on my calendar. I'm on an auto schedule. They tell me when they're due for their vaccines. Yeah, I know. Anyway, we covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we did. I mean, not just a couple of outbreaks, It's
nothing
And we've avoided an asteroid hitting the Earth.
That was good.
So, I mean, yeah, that's good news.
We're working on some vaccines. I guess the TLDR is don't skip your vaccines, folks. Please. Oh my God, especially right now, that MMR vaccine. It is not the time to be messing with the vaccine schedule. Please. All right, Sarah, do you want to take us home?
I would love to. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We hope you learned a thing or two. I certainly did. Please join us next week on your trusted source for no nonsense, just science.